The doctors had told Adrian Hale that losing his hearing was a tragedy, but in truth, it had become a kind of shield, protecting him from the noise of the world, the whispers of opportunists, and the carefully crafted lies of those around him. For years, the billionaire had learned to read lips, observe movements, and trust his instincts rather than people. But on the morning he secretly regained his hearing, after a rare and risky surgery, he realized something horrifying. Silence had protected him from the one thing he never wanted to hear, the truth. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that touch the heart, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. It truly helps keep these stories alive. Adrian returned home that evening, pretending he was still deaf. Only his doctor and his butler knew the surgery had succeeded beyond expectations. He wanted one day, just one day, of watching people be themselves before he revealed his restored hearing. He was prepared to hear joy, concern, maybe even love from the woman he had shared 7 years of marriage with. He was not prepared for the exact opposite. His wife, Serena Hale, had been an elegant force in his life, a former model with a smile capable of lighting up cameras and breaking hearts. She had married him when he'd still been able to hear and stayed after the silence consumed him. To the world, she was the picture of devotion. To Adrian, she had been warmth in a life crowded by cold business decisions and calculating associates. But lately something had changed. She avoided him more, spoke less to him, by voice and even by gestures, and spent more time surrounded by the glittering people of her social circle, people Adrian never fully trusted. That night, he entered the grand chandelier-lit dining room of their hilltop mansion. The long, polished table was set, candles flickering, and soft music played from hidden speakers. Serena sat at the far end, scrolling through her phone. When she looked up, she gave him a practiced smile, beautiful but distant. He could now hear the slight impatience in her sigh, something he'd never noticed before. The house staff moved quietly, unaware that their employer could now hear every sound, every murmur. Adrian watched them with a strange mix of hope and anxiety. He wanted the people closest to him to reveal who they truly were. Then his gaze fell upon the new waitress, a young woman with tired eyes but a gentle expression. Her name tag read Lena. She carried the tray carefully, as though the porcelain plates were fragile dreams she feared to break. Adrian noticed she looked new, nervous, and fiercely determined to do well. Serena barely glanced at her until the girl made the smallest mistake, a slight tremble that caused a fork to clink against the plate. Serena's smile dropped instantly, and with it, the illusion Adrian had clung to for so long. He didn't react, he just listened. Serena leaned toward Lena, speaking in a low, sharp voice she clearly believed her husband could not hear. Her tone was dipped in venom, cutting and cold. What she said next made Adrian's blood run cold. Serena told her to serve him half-cooked vegetables, not the meal Adrian had requested, but something he disliked. And then she ordered the girl to replace his usual medication with look-alike supplements. She said she wanted him weak, dependent, manageable. That a man who could no longer hear didn't need the strength or freedom he once had. That he was easier to control when he was tired and isolated. Adrian froze. He felt as though someone had stabbed him in the chest and twisted the blade. He stared at the flickering candles, forcing his face to remain still while waves of betrayal crashed through him. The room blurred. His own heartbeat roared in his newly restored ears. He had believed Serena loved him through the silence, yet that very silence had been the weapon she used against him. But he also heard something else, something that struck him deeper. The waitress, Lena, whispered softly, trembling, telling Serena she didn't want to do something so wrong. She said it wasn't right. She said the billionaire had been kind to her on her first day, even though he hadn't spoken a word. He could see the loneliness in his eyes. Serena's voice sharpened dangerously as she threatened the girl's job, family, and reputation. And then she forced the packet of substituted pills into Lena's shaking hands. Adrian had seen mistreatment before. He'd seen cruelty in boardrooms and business negotiations, but hearing it in his own home, from his own wife, directed at a girl barely surviving on her wages, was something he couldn't ignore. He swallowed hard as Serena stood and left the dining hall, heels clicking like judgment on marble. Lena stood frozen in place, clutching the pills, tears welling in her eyes. For the first time that night, Adrian made a sound, a deliberate clearing of his throat. Lena jumped, startled, then turned to him slowly, realizing he was watching her. He gave the smallest nod, a nod that said, "I heard everything." But she didn't know he had regained his hearing. She simply believed he was acknowledging her distress through observation alone. She lowered her eyes, ashamed and afraid. Adrian rose from his chair and walked out without touching his food. He needed time to process.
He needed air. He needed to understand how long his wife had been treating him like a puppet made of silence. That night, he lay awake for hours in the master bedroom he no longer felt belonged to him. Serena slept peacefully on her side, unaware that her carefully constructed illusion had shattered. Adrian stared at the ceiling, wondering how many other lies had been spoken when he couldn't hear. He wondered if he had mistaken comfort for love, routine for devotion. The next morning, he watched Lena again during breakfast. She served him quietly, avoiding his eyes, but he noticed the way she protected the real medication bottles hidden in her apron pocket. She refused to harm him, even at the risk of losing everything. Her integrity struck him far more deeply than Serena's betrayal. Days passed. Adrian continued pretending he was deaf. He listened to everything, phone calls, conversations, whispered insults when Serena thought he wasn't looking. He discovered she had been moving his assets, manipulating his staff, undermining his decisions at social events. She was rewriting his life in the spaces where he could not hear. But in those same days, he saw the waitress pass by with silent courage. He noticed her offering food to hungry staff, staying late to help others, whispering kind words to the gardener when he winced from back pain. She was the kind of person he had always tried to protect through his charities and foundations. People who worked hard, suffered quietly, and remained good despite the world's cruelty. One evening, when the sun stained the sky orange and gold, Adrian watched Lena stand alone near the kitchen exit. She held an envelope in her hands, her resignation letter. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. He approached her slowly, and when she noticed him, she quickly hid the letter behind her back, attempting to smile. The pain in her eyes told him everything. She couldn't stay, not in a house ruled by fear, not under a woman capable of destroying lives with a whisper. He wanted to tell her she didn't need to leave. He wanted to tell her he heard everything, that he valued her honesty, that her bravery was the reason he was still alive and safe. But instead, he watched her slip out into the fading sunlight, the envelope tucked under her arm. That was the moment Adrian decided he could no longer pretend. The mask of silence had served its purpose. The next morning, he called for a full staff meeting. They gathered in the marble-floored foyer, maids, cooks, drivers, and servers, all standing nervously as the billionaire faced them with calm determination. Serena entered moments later, confused and annoyed, but Adrian ignored her. He looked at the staff, all of whom had been living under her quiet terror, and raised his voice clearly. "I can hear." The room gasped. Serena went pale. Her eyes widened as she stumbled back slightly. But Adrian was not finished. He thanked the staff for their service, and then he told them the truth, that their kindness had been seen even when he could not hear it. He assured them new policies would protect them. He promised safety, respect, and fair treatment. Then he dismissed everyone, except Serena. What followed was a long, painful conversation about cruelty, manipulation, betrayal, and the slow poisoning of trust. Serena tried to lie, cry, beg, and shift blame, but her voice no longer controlled the narrative. Adrian could hear every false note. By the end of that conversation, it was clear that love had been replaced by ambition, and silence had revealed more than sound ever could. Within weeks, Serena was gone from the mansion and from his life. Lawyers handled the separation quietly, and Adrian made sure the staff received better wages, safer conditions, and dignity at work. But one person was missing: Lena. He searched every staffing agency, called every contact. Weeks turned into months. He didn't want to disrupt her life, but he wanted to thank her for her bravery, her kindness, her refusal to harm someone even under pressure. One rainy afternoon, he finally found her working at a small family cafe. Her uniform simple, her hair tied back, her smile faint but genuine as she cleaned tables and served tea to elderly customers. He watched her silently at first, noticing the gentle way she helped a blind man find his seat, the warmth she showed to a crying child, the gratitude she expressed when her manager praised her work. Then Adrian stepped forward. This time, he didn't pretend to be deaf. He thanked her clearly, from the heart, telling her she had helped him see the truth of his life, because when people think you cannot hear, they reveal who they really are. She listened in disbelief as he offered her a new job, not as a waitress, but as the coordinator of his new foundation aimed at protecting workers from exploitation. A position built on integrity, empathy, and courage. Tears filled her eyes as she accepted. And for the first time in a long time, Adrian knew his life was no longer built on silence. It was being rebuilt on truth.